Welcome back to another episode of Cheating Exposed. My name is Lourdes Fernandez, and my book is now available on Amazon Kindle, link in bio. And today we're ending this mini-series on infidelity with a deeper psychological lens, and that's the attachment styles, and how they can explain why some people look outside the relationship for a connection. This episode is called Attachment Styles and Affairs, Why Some People Seek Love Outside. So let's dive right into it. So I want to start off with today's episode with going over on what attachment styles even is. So the attachment theory comes from decades of research into how we connect, love, and bond. And here's the short version of it. How we were cared for as children often shapes how we handle intimacy as adults. And there's 4 main styles that we want to learn about. And the first one is the secure attachment style. And these individuals are usually comfortable with closeness and communicates openly. And then we have the anxious attachment style. And these individuals usually crave closeness but fears abandonment. And then we have the avoidant attachment style. And these individuals struggle with intimacy and fears dependence. And then finally, we have the disorganized attachment style, and they're a mix of both and often linked to trauma. Now, why does this matter when we're talking about cheating? Because infidelity is rarely random. It often reflects unresolved attachment needs. So let's take a closer look at the avoidant cheater. Avoidant partners crave independence. They often see intimacy as suffocating. So what happens? When the relationship gets too close, they may create distance by becoming emotionally withdrawn, picking fights to push their partner away, or in some cases, finding intimacy outside the relationship where it feels less threatening because it's not quote unquote official. Psychologically, the affair becomes a way to control closeness. They get connection without the commitment. And if we take a closer look at the anxious cheater, now let's talk about the anxious style. These individuals often fear being abandoned, rejected, or unloved. So if their partner feels distant, they may interpret it as, I'm not good enough, or I need to find someone who wants me. Cheating in this case is less about desire and more about reassurance. They seek validation outside the relationship to soothe that inner fear of not being chosen. But of course, that reassurance is temporary and it doesn't heal the insecurity. It just distracts from it. And if we take a closer look at the secure style, people with the secure attachment are generally the least likely to cheat. But why is this? Because they're comfortable with both intimacy and independence. So when problems arise, they lean into communication instead of avoidance or escapism. But even secure people can betray, and this usually is going to happen when they have stressors, trauma, or circumstances overwhelming their normal coping strategies. So the common thread here is emotional needs. Cheating isn't just about sex, it's about emotional regulation. So avoidance cheat to create space. Anxious types cheat to close the space, and both are trying to manage their internal discomfort through external validation. The affair isn't the root problem, the attachment wounds are. So can somebody change their attachment style? The answer is yes, but it's definitely not overnight. It definitely takes some work with therapy, counseling, working with a psychologist, and self-reflection and healthier relationships can all shift how we attach. The problem is that most people don't even know their attachment style. So they repeat the same patterns, relationship after relationship. So if someone says, I always end up in the same kind of mess, that's usually an attachment pattern on autopilot. So what do we do if this hits home? And honestly, you're not alone with this one because I definitely have gone through this myself. And if you're noticing these patterns in yourself or your partner, We can do a few things. One, we can identify your style, and there's a lot of free backed quizzes online that can help us determine this. And number two, we can talk about needs openly. We can say, when you're distant, I get anxious. Can we check in more often? And three, my personal favorite, we can seek professional help from a psychologist, a counselor, a therapist. There's many couple therapies that can rewire how two people connect, especially if attachment wounds are super deep. And most importantly, cheating isn't inevitable. Attachment styles may explain behavior, but they don't excuse betrayal. Healing is possible, but only with honesty and effort. So if I can leave you with my final thoughts on today's episode, cheating often gets framed as moral failure. And yes, it's a betrayal of trust. But underneath, it's often about unmet attachment needs and unhealed patterns. Avoidance run from closeness. Anxious partners run from abandonment. And both end up running into someone else's arms. But here's the good news. When we understand our attachment style, we don't have to keep repeating the cycle. Awareness gives us the power to pause, to communicate, and to choose differently. And that's it for today's episode of Cheating Exposed. My name is Lourdes Fernandez, and I'll see you next time as we open a brand new chapter on the psychology of love and self-discovery. If the information I shared resonated with you, please don't forget to follow, share, and leave a comment to push my content out to other viewers who might find this information useful. And remember, awareness is the first step to protecting your peace.